Hello, scrappers! Welcome to Creating with Cut Files 102. I'm Andrea with the whole kit and caboodle, and we are going to dive even deeper into using overlays on your scrapbook pages. So tonight, we are going to learn a new technique while we're creating this adorable Let the Sun Shine In two-page spread. But before we get started with that, I wanted to show you another technique. It's one that takes a little bit of time, so not one that we wanted to necessarily do in class, but it's a really fun technique that Nick has developed. And what Nick is going to do is use this texture paste and some watercolor techniques to create a really fun and really dimensional project with our overlays. Check it out.
Hello, scrappers! Today we will combine our overlays with some modeling paste to make our pages pop with texture. First, I will place the overlay on a 12 by 12 sheet of cardstock and then cut some pieces of tape. To secure the overlay, I will roll these small strips and stick them onto the back of these hearts to ensure it doesn't move around. We want it to stay in one place. Then, I will take other strips of tape and place them strategically around the borders of the overlay. For this project, I am using Liquitex modeling paste and a plastic knife. Several companies produce tools to help spread the paste, but I wanted to demonstrate how it works if you don't have any. Remember to evenly cover the overlay, and a little bit of paste goes a long way. Now this part of the process will take some time. So I suggest putting on a movie, listening to some music, or finding a podcast. After I spread the paste, I will take off the strips of tape and slowly peel back the overlay. Remember, we still have those strips of tape on the back of the hearts. And look what the paste does already, creating a raised texture on the paper. I have waited a couple hours for the paste to dry since I have a relatively thin layer, but you can wait either a day or you can use a hair dryer to make it dry faster. For this next part, I am using a water brush, a Nuvo glitter marker, Fire Brick Red, and a Nuvo spray bottle. First, I will use the Fire Brick Red to color generously onto the plastic bags we use to send our customers their kits. Then, I use the water brush with the ink as if I were watercoloring. Does this take you back to kindergarten? Be very careful with your water usage. If you get the page too wet, it will become damaged and crinkle up. You will notice me coloring onto the bag. This is because I want to keep an even tone of red throughout my project. If I did not do this, then the ink would become lighter and I would have different tones, which is fine. I just want to keep it a consistent red throughout the paste. If I ever do want to water it down, I can use the spray bottle. And now I have finished painting the modeling paste. Now, I will return to this page and add even more dimension. I have decided to dilute the ink with the spray bottle and enhance the round candies on the page by painting in the gaps between the paste. I will avoid the other spaces because I want to emphasize the candies specifically. Of course, you are welcome to paint what you want on your future projects and include different colors. I just wanted to demonstrate that you can use one color to make different tones. And isn't this beautiful? You may not notice it on the camera, but you can see paper and paste shimmering on the page. This is a simple, intricate way to incorporate other techniques to your scrapbooking and make your pages gorgeous and unique.
What a fun technique! It's such a great way to add texture and dimension and really strong visual interest to your scrapbook page. What we're going to do tonight is going to do the same thing. We're going to add some texture, some dimension, and we're going to add a fun interactive concept to our overlays. We are going to create a shaker box. So it's a little bit of an in-depth technique. So watch along as Nick shows you how to do this technique using our Ho 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 overlay.
Hello, scrappers! We are having fun today with an overlay. We will be making sequence shakers in the gaps of these H's. Now, as you can see, this overlay is a Christmas overlay. But whether it's Christmas or not, it doesn't matter, because you know how much Andrea loves Christmas. Off camera, I made an H stencil. The key to making the stencil is it has to be bigger than the gaps in between the H's on the overlay. You'll see why later in the video. So now I'm going to grab the H stencil, a sheet of acetate, and tape. I'm going to cut little strips of the tape and roll them up in my fingers and stick them back to the template. That way, the template can stick to the acetate and not move. This ensures that I make a clean cut. After I cut 3 H's, it's time to cut the backings. For the backings, I'm going to use red cardstock. The color is Carnival, and it comes from My Colors cardstock. Again, I'm going to grab the H, and then I'm going to trace the H along the cardstock. When I cut the H's out of the Carnival cardstock, I won't have to worry about cutting outside of the pencil outline. This is because my template is already bigger than the gaps in the overlay, so the backing will have no trouble sticking onto it. Now it's time to grab the overlay. I flip it so the texture side is down. Then I grab some glue and I start to glue along the outlines of the H's. This way the acetate H's can stick to them. They will serve as the fronts of our shakers. I don't want to use too much glue, but I lightly outline the entirety of each H. Then I grab the acetate H's and stick them on. Now, I have acetate sheets to make the shakers, but if you don't have them, no worries. You can use page protectors. You can even use the plastic slips that we use to send you our kits. You can be very flexible. Okay, now I grab a roll of foam tape so that I can create space for the sequence I will use for the shaker. I grab my non-stick scissors. This will make the process a lot easier because they won't stick through the tape. I cut one strip of tape and then I slowly but surely cut a slice of the tape out. Now, I'm not usually a stickler about rules in scrapbooking or crafting in general, but I will say this, you do not want the tape to be thicker than the outline of the H's. If you do, The tape will show through the front, and it will take away from the aesthetic. I am using the foam tape to show you that you don't need to buy other things, but micro dots are an option also, and require less cutting. And after I outline the H's, I start to put foam tape on the rest of the overlay. That way the whole overlay can pop out. And now that I've sufficiently covered the overlay in foam tape, it is time to peel the backings. I think the foam tape was the longest part of this process. I always say it's good to turn on a podcast, an audiobook, or one of your favorite TV shows while you are doing these projects. And now that the last piece is off, it's time for the fun part, the sequence. Now, to make this easier, I like to use a spoon, but you can use any kind of scooping item. You can use sequins, glitter, anything that shines really. I don't like to scoop too much in at a time. If you do, it'll easily overflow, and then that makes the process a little more difficult. As you can see, the sequins are Christmas colors, hence the choice of the project. Now that the sequins are on the acetate, it's time to reach for those H backings. And I place each backing on one by one. Because the middle H is overlapping with the top and bottom H's, I decided to put a little bit of glue, just to make sure there was excellent coverage and to make sure that the H itself could stick well. Alrighty then, I've decided to place the shaker overlay on top of a 12 by 12 sheet of carnival cardstock. I'm going to take the overlay and put glue on the backs of the H's. They are already on the same level as the rest of the overlay due to the excellent coverage of the 3D tape, but I just want to make sure that the H's can stick also. We've worked hard on this project. We don't want anything going wrong. And after I've sufficiently covered the H's, it is time to carefully place the overlay exactly where you want it, and put some gentle pressure. Yay! We did it! We created a beautiful shaker overlay, and there's even spots for your photos in the corners. The best part is, you can shake it and it will move. This really adds a 3D element to your pages. The process is a little bit long, but I think it's worth it. Thank you for joining me.
So are we ready to create our very own shaker box? This class was one that we taught in person while we were traveling to Lancaster, Lakeland, and to St. Louis. So this first page has been pre-recorded several months ago for that in-person venue. So we're going to start with the left side of the spread for Let the Sun Shine In, and we're going to create the shaker box with our overlay. Let's pull out your page kit and let's get started. All right, let's get started on one of the most fun techniques that you can do with overlays. Know that it's also one of the most tedious, so it's probably something that will take a little time, so just know that in advance, but the payoff is so worth it. I just absolutely adore the effect that it creates. So obviously we're going to work on this page here, and the top of our sunshine is going to be our shaker box. But there are so many overlays that would work really well with this technique. One of the biggest ones, of course, would be our our one here, that's the ray of sunshine, and you could do every other one. You could do that as a shaker box. You could also use the Mickey head. So put the entire Mickey head and then maybe put like confetti in it. So you could just shred up some paper or punch a whole bunch of circles with your just cardstock paper and make our Mickey head as a shaker box. And what would also be crazy cool is if you look at our Under the Sea overlay, and we could use the micro mini little teeny shaker pieces and how we have divided the S, the E, the A with the wave, make each 3 of those layers a separate color. So there's so many possibilities. So we're gonna go ahead and get started with our Let the Sun Shine In here. So I'm going to leave the sample side by side so that you can always see what the finished product looks like as we're working along here. So go ahead and open up your kit. And obviously we're going to start with that light blue background paper. This entire collection is the brand new papers from my mind's eye. Isn't it just absolutely incredibly gorgeous? I'm just in love with this brand new collection. When you pull out your pieces, just something to be aware of, there is a little teeny piece of acetate. It's probably even hard to see in the video, but this is what we're going to use to create our shaker. So it's easily lost in that kit, but just make sure you're aware and look for that acetate piece. All right, so the first thing we need to do is with our light blue paper here, we just need to cut off that barcode strip. So go ahead, use your paper trimmer or your scissors and cut off that barcode strip. All right, you're some of the first people to actually work with this collection. This one is Gingham Foundry. So that's one of 2 collections that My Mind's Eye is just releasing. We do carry all of the product and you're gonna see it in a lot of our designs. It's just so versatile, so gorgeous. So that is our background sheet. The next thing we're gonna do is we have this pattern paper, these 2 pattern papers here, that's gonna create kind of the base for our page. So we're going to go ahead and glue those 2 pieces together. I'm going to put my pieces a little handy here. All right, so we have our sunshine, and then we have our navy piece. So we're going to go ahead and glue both of those pieces. When you adhere the sun, it's about 4 inches from the top, about 4 inches from the top. The reason I love working with background sheets like this that kind of have a line that goes through them, it's a great way to cheat to make sure that the papers you are layering on subsequently have a line that you can make sure you get them straight. So if you notice, oftentimes I will use a background paper that has some sort of line. That way I can be sure that my paper is getting lined up straight. So it's about 4 inches from the top there. These do have words, so make sure your words are going the correct way. And then we're just going to adhere that horizontally. Again, we're just going to make sure we're lining it up. And it should be directly across the page. All right, we're going to do the exact same thing when we adhere the navy strip. We're just going to overlap it, by 1/4 of an inch or so. We're going to overlap that piece. And we're going to go ahead and adhere that down. All right, again, I'm going to use my words to make sure that I have that lined up really straight there. All right, so we have our background kind of created here. So now we can start with working all of our layers on. So the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and create that shaker. So in your bag, you have our Let the Sun Shine In overlay. So we're gonna create a shaker box out of this top portion here. You could really make it easy and do the whole circle as a shaker box. We also sell these individually as well, but we're just going to add a shaker box that we've created here along that top portion. Now, the adhesive is really important when you're adhering the acetate to your cardstock. Acetate is such a slick, smooth surface that you need to make sure you have a really strong adhesive. So you can use the tacky glue from either Scotch or Aleene's. You could use something like Glossy Accents. You could also use, that really thin double-sided red tape. Know that will just take you a little bit longer because it's not a completely even surface. So you're going to do a lot of moving around, a lot of edges and turns. So that could take a little while, but that would be a great option as well. But what we're going to do is we need to adhere our acetate first to our overlay. So it's a little hard to see because the overlay, of course, is clear. Maybe if I put the circle behind it, maybe that'll make it a little easier. So don't forget we're working upside down here, and we have our piece of acetate that's been cut exactly to fit. Now, if you needed to cut this yourself, you would just lay your overlay onto the acetate and then draw around and then cut it out by hand. But we've cut these on a die cutting machine for you. So you can kind of see here how that's going to go together. All right, so I'm going to set this aside. That way you can see it a little easier, and I'm going to flip this. That way when you see it, you can it pops off a little bit more. So the first thing we need to do when we're creating that shaker box is some of these pieces here have a layer that goes behind them. If you look at our final sample, the word the and the word sunshine have layers that are going to go behind. So we're going to go ahead and put those down first, and then we are going to add our acetate. So out of your baggie, we want to pull out the orange shadow to the and that gold shadow to the word sunshine. So we're going to go ahead and adhere the to the back of our overlay. So we're going to run our adhesive just along that silhouette there of the word the. And then don't forget, we're doing everything upside down here. And then it should just line up perfectly. And then after we have the word the, then we can go ahead and adhere the backing layer to the word sunshine. So again, I'm just going to take my adhesive and I'm going to run it all along that word. Just kind of lightly dabbing it just all across there. Oops, it goes in the word in as well. Let's put a little more adhesive down there. Okay, and then again, it should line up perfectly for you. Again, we all have this cut out for you. There we go. I have to see it. I am one of those very visual persons that I need to see it, how it goes down. All right. So now we have the and sunshine all backed and ready to go. Now, we do have, if you look at our final project here, we have a rainbow that's going to go underneath that portion of the sun. So we're going to go ahead and put that together, and we're going to go ahead and adhere it to the back, and then we're going to do our shaker layer. So go ahead and pull out your rainbow.
and all of the pieces for the rainbow. And we're going to go ahead and adhere all of those layers together. So it doesn't really matter which order you go in. I'm going to go ahead and start with the cloud here. I didn't ink it, but you would be more than welcome to ink that if you would like. You could also use the 3D foam squares to adhere just this portion to make that kind of stand off just a little more. If you've taken our Nouveau glitter marker class, you could also watercolor. That shows you how to watercolor a cloud. That's just a really beautiful technique as well. But for the sake of this sample, we are just going to leave it as it is. We have this beautiful shaker that we're creating, so we're going to let that stand out and be the highlight. So I'm just going to keep on layering. I am slightly obsessed with rainbows right now. They just add so much happiness to a page. And you can do them in absolutely any colors. Obviously here we've kind of gone with the darker shades of the rainbow. You could do it with the primary, with the pastels. If you notice, a lot of our kits right now have the rainbows. All right, so we have our green. Did anybody else learn Roy G. Biv when you were in elementary school? That's how I always remembered the colors of the rainbow, was Roy G. Biv. Red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violets. All right. So now that we have our rainbow together, I'm just going to put just a little bit of adhesive here and just a little bit of adhesive along here, and we're going to go ahead and attach it in its spot. That will give us just a little extra place to adhere our acetate when it comes time for that portion. All right, so just a little bit of adhesive here, and we're going to slip it under. And it's going to go about like so. All right. So you should have your overlay that looks like this, which just in itself is so pretty, I think. If you look at this sample here that will show on the screen, it would be really fun also if you wanted to color in your sun using your Nouveau glitter marker, but look how we left the outside, the outline of the H, so that it looks like that sun ray is going behind it. We've just done that just by coloring with our Nouveau glitter marker and allowing that H to remain white. So that's another cute way to use this overlay. All right, so now we need to add our acetate layer. So we're going to flip this over. And then we have our acetate. Again, this one's going to be a little harder to see now at this point since our acetate is clear, but you should be able to tell where it overlaps and how it's going to be adhered to our overlay here. And this part is really crucial. We need it adhered at every single space because we don't want our sequins to flip out of the overlay. We want them to stay all contained in that overlay. So we need to make sure that we really have every single little part of that attached. So again, make sure you're using a really tacky glue that's going to really secure that overlay. What's easiest for me is to add my glue to my acetate and then put it down. So you kind of got to do what's easiest for you, because remember, the acetate is going to line up like this. So I'm going to flip it over, and then I'm going to run my ball of adhesive all the way around the outer edge. So you just want to make sure that you're adding the adhesive to the right side, the correct side of our acetate. You could put the adhesive all along your cardstock as well. This one was easier for me. I know I have, my oldest son is left-handed, and when he would try to learn to do things, I would always just show him how I did it right-handed and then let his mind figure out how to convert it rather than me trying to convert it for him. Being left-handed was natural to him, not to me. So hopefully you can figure out which way best works for you as well. All right, so then we want to make sure that acetate is adhered all the way around, all the way around. And because that acetate is a smooth, slick surface, you are going to get just a little bit of the oozing that's going to come from that. So I'm just going to lightly dab it all the way across here. All right. I got just a little spot there. Do a little bit of cleanup here. The good thing about this is it does dry perfectly clear, so we should be good. All right, so now that we have our acetate adhered down, now we can go ahead and create kind of the little well. Now, you're going to want to do that with the 3D foam squares. You don't have to. I just like that it creates kind of a little more of a lip for our sequins. If you want it to be less lumpy, you're welcome to kind of adhere it directly if you prefer that as well. I'm going to use the 3D foam tape just because, again, I like that little bit of a well. When I'm working with the 3D foam tape, I'm going to use the Tim Holtz scissors because they are resistant kind of to that gooiness that the foam produces. And you want your foam to be really thin because we don't want to see it on the outside edge there. We're just going to kind of use it as a well to hold all of our sequins. So I'm going to cut a thin strip here. And this is kind of the most time-consuming part of this entire process because, again, we don't want our sequins to leak out. So we need to make sure that we have the entire surface covered. So I'm going to get this one down here first, and then kind of I'll stop and show you. So if you look, we want to make sure that our foam is definitely thinner than the thickness of our overlay here, so that when you flip it over, see how we don't see that foam at all. And we need it to go along the entire surface of our overlay. So the thinner you cut it, the more pliable it is to do kind of that curved surface. So I'm just going to cut another piece here, and I'm going to keep going until that entire outer edge of the acetate is covered. To use, if you wanted to do this yourself, you could use, you know, that clear acetate that you take off your Cricut mats? You could use something like that. Companies like Amazon will sell it in bulk. All right. Again, we want to make sure we have every single little portion, and we don't want to go in this clear space because we don't want to see our foam. And again, the thinner you cut your strips, the easier it's going to be to get that to curve. And I am just going to follow just that edge, kind of snipping as we go along. And I'm just going to keep going until I have gone all the way around my acetate. If all you have is just the squares, like from EK Success, there is that border, that little border that's left over from your squares. That little portion works perfectly as well to create this little lip here. I like the big roll because you can make it as long as you need it to be and kind of not limited in the length. We are almost done, so I'm going to just cut just a couple portions here. And again, make sure we get the entire surface. All right, and we're going to have just one more little space here. All right, so if you look at your final piece, make sure that you have the tape all the way around. There is not even the tiniest of a section that doesn't have that, that adhesive. Now, typically, when I'm using 3D squares, I always say, if it's going under a page protector, there's really no need to peel off every single layer of every single little 3D square. However, in this instance, you will definitely need to peel it off. Let's hold off, though, so that I can pick it up and show you kind of this next technique. So what we're going to do is we are now going to take our sequins, and inside this little well that we've made, we are going to sprinkle our sequins inside of there. So I'm going to go ahead and leave this off just for the sake of showing you the technique. So in your bag of tricks here, you should have a little portion, a little baggie of random sequins here. You can use them all, you can use just a few. Depends on how full you want it. So I'm just gonna kind of spread them out until I get kind of a good amount. Let's put maybe just a few back here. I want to be able to see all of the fun sequins, but don't want it so full that they don't have anywhere to shake to. It would really be best if you used a spoon and not just use your hands. All right. So that looks like a good amount to me. We'll save these for another project. All right, I'm going to pick up just a few of these random ones. Maybe. All right, so if I pick this up here, you should see that our sequins are tucked just in that well that we've made. We don't want them sticking to our border at all. We want to just make sure that we've kind of loosely filled that section there. All right, now I'm going to go ahead and peel all of these off. And as I was saying before, we need this to be totally adhered because we need those sequins to be maintained just in that little spot. So we do need to make sure we peel off every one of these. This again, I couldn't do this without my tweezers, especially with the 3D foam squares. They so come in handy to pick off those little edges. You could use the piercer portion to kind of grab the edge, and it helps really pull that right off. We're going to just continue to go all the way around And the longer that your strips are, the easier this is going to be to peel because you can do it there in the longer strips. We're just going to keep going around until every single one is ready to stick. That way we've created that perfect little pocket there for our sequins. All right, so now that we have all of those foam ready to go, we have our background circle, and this is what's going to be kind of the back of our sequins. That's going to be the final layer that creates that pocket and holds it all in together. Now you could, if you wanted to, add a little more adhesive down around in here so that it's stuck all the way around. I really didn't feel it was necessary. It's really going to be stuck here, and so it's not going to go anywhere. But this doesn't allow a lot of opportunity for movement. So you want to make sure that you really get that location spot on the first time. So we're going to adhere that. Don't forget that your circle is double-sided. So depending on which side you want to see, I always like to see the texture side. We're going to really press it down. We want to make sure that pocket is all stuck together. All right, are we ready for the highlight of the whole page? We're going to flip this over and voila, isn't that just so stinking adorable? It really adds, especially using sequins on this specific one, how it creates kind of that, how it reflects the light so perfectly. All right, so this shows you here when I use this one pretty full. This one here is not quite as many, just kind of whatever your preference would be when it comes to that. So that's really the hardest part of this. So now we're just going to like tidy up the page and put the rest of it together. So we have our background that we've already created. And we're just going to go ahead and now we can adhere this piece to the center of our page here. So I'm going to just flip this back over and I'm going to add my adhesive all along the yellow. I didn't put adhesive along the rays of the sun. You could. I just didn't feel it was necessary because it's going to be stuck down well enough by just going to the center there. And we're going to go just to the center of the page. We want to make sure our words are level there. All right, so we're going to decorate the rest of the page, and then we gave you a 12 by 12 sheet of white cardstock. So you're going to use that cardstock to cut your photo mats. We do give you the dimensions and your directions if you want it exactly how it is in the sample. And if you notice in the sample, I did leave that unadhered so that I could slip photos underneath later as well. But you could add your photo mats here. You could tuck one or two in your corners, depending on kind of how many photos that you have. But we're just going to go ahead and finish out, and we're going to embellish this page just as you see it in the sample. So in your baggie, you still have 2 more sets of die cuts that we're going to put together. So we have our heart, and our heart just has the 2 layers. And what we're going to do with the strawberry bonbon marker is we're just going to kind of create that little highlight. You could doodle all over this, but for this sample, we're just going to add just that little bit of shimmer highlight there onto our heart. And then we're going to adhere those 2 layers together. And then we're going to repeat this process. We have our little die cut butterfly that we're going to put together. So if you want to pull out the layers of your butterfly, I did draw along the butterfly wings as well, so I highlighted them with our, this is Anthony blue, but I think on the sample I used Imperial blue. So Imperial blue would probably work a little better. It looks like I grabbed the Anthony blue, which is going to work just fine though as well. And we're just going to kind of do along the wings, we're going to add some shimmer, a little bit along the body here. The point of this is just to, we're talking about sunshine on this page, so it's just to add a little bit of fun shimmer. A few little highlights there that go in just a little bit further. All right, then once we get those drawn, then we're going to adhere our wings to our butterfly. All right, one more wing here. And then we're going to go ahead and put the rest of our page together. All right, so now we can go ahead and assemble our page. So the first thing here is our heart, and we're just going to kind of tuck that underneath just like so. I'm going to use my tape runner for that. And you can go on top of the ray, you could go underneath the ray. It's really whatever your preference is. There is no right or wrong. All right, when it comes to the butterfly, I want him to look like he was in flight. So what I have done is I'm going to put just your regular adhesive down his body, and then I'm going to add some 3D foam squares to just his wings. So only the wings will pop off, and his body is going to be flush to the page. So I'm going to add the 3D foam just to the outer portion of the wings. Just like this. So if you look, I've left this entire center portion open. And then I'm going to go ahead and peel those off. And then we're going to run our strong adhesive down his body so that the body is flush to the page and only the wings are popped off. So I'm really going to push that down. I really want to make sure that that gets stuck in the middle. So look what a difference it makes. We've used just 2 plain pieces of solid color cardstock, and by adding the shimmer and just the way that we added the dimension with the foam, how much of a difference that really makes. All right, now you have a sheet of chipboard stickers. I would suggest when you're using chipboard stickers to always add just a little bit of extra adhesive. They are stickers, so they are tacky, but sometimes I have found over time that they can move around and come loose, so I always add just a little bit of extra adhesive when I'm using my chipboard stickers. Also know that you will need some of these stickers for the other page as well. So we're going to use a few for this page, and then the rest would be used for the other side. There are plenty of extras though, so feel free to use what you desire and not necessarily have to be identical to mine. But I just thought these little birds were such a fun addition. And then we have our little leaf here. To me, that looked like a flourish that we're going to stick just between our rainbow and our heart here. Okay, and then we have one more bird that I'm going to use for this side. All right, then the final thing we're going to do, this collection set also comes with coordinating enamel dots. So anytime there are enamel dots, I always have to use them. So we're going to add just a little more fun dimension with that. So you can just have fun with however that you want to add these. I want to emphasize like it's the dot of the eye in sunshine. So I use that big yellow one in the center there. And then the other ones are kind of random. I've used the pattern in these papers as well, kind of going in the center of one of those accents, and then using again that paper as the guide. But really these are kind of a little more random. We're just using them to add just a little additional texture on this page. So I'm going to go ahead and finish this up, and then I'll cut my photo mats, and I'll see you right back here when this is over. All right, so I've cut my white photo mats identical to our sample here. So we have a 4 1/4 square, then we have 2 3 1/4 squares. So I'm going to adhere these along the bottom. I use a lot of square photos because I know a lot of people put their photos on Instagram. I'm not really good at Instagram, as you are well aware. But the craze is kind of, the Instagram craze created this love of square photos. So we often will use the square photos. I like the look of them, but it's also perfect for all your Instagram snapshots. And I'm going to adhere them again, just like our sample here. Just like that. So there you go. There is our fun little sequin shaker box overlay page. So you've done the hardest part of this spread now by creating that shaker box with our overlay on the left page. So now we're going to wrap up, and we're going to finish by doing the right page, which should come together pretty quickly. We're going to start by using this cream vine as the background. And again, this is from My Mind's Eye, Gingham Foundry's collection. I just think it's so beautiful and versatile. I love how it just adds flow and movement to your page. I also used it as a Nemo page. When I first saw it, I thought it looked like the seaweed from Under the Sea. So I wanted to show you again just how versatile it can be here. If we can get that on the screen. So I've used there that exact same background page, but used it with more of an ocean beach theme. I just love it. You know my obsession with My Mind's Eye. All right, so I'm going to cut off that barcode strip, and we're going to get started. All right, obviously we're going to use that there as the background piece. If you want something very bold and something lighter against your photos, you're welcome to always flip and use any side of these pages that work for you. So after we get our barcode strip cut down, we have a piece of 12 by 12 navy. And again, if you have flipped and used this side, you might want to go with the words here. But we're going to work with this navy paper, and you do realize that it has a distinctive line pattern here. So we want to make sure that our lines in our pattern are going vertical when we adhere it to the page. So the first measurement we're going to cut is that 8 1/2. So if you put your paper in the cutter this way, we're going to measure from here down 8 1/2 inches. So we need to cut that 8 1/2 inches. And that measurement is 8 1/2 by 11 3/4. So we're just going to snip off just a tiny little bit on the edge. just enough that you should be able to see just a really thin border all the way around. And we're going to go ahead and adhere that then to the page. I'll run my adhesive. And adhere that right at the bottom. You'll notice that I don't have the already completed sample showing on one side. We did completely sell out of these class kits. We have sold well over 400 of this particular kit, but we put it back in production since we still have some demand for it. So I don't have the actual sample to compare it to as we go along, but know that it's for a good reason. It's back in production, and you can pre-order both the Creating with Cut Files 101 and 102 kits on our website. Those should ship just in a few weeks. All right, now that we have the navy, now what we have next is that gold floral piece. You're going to have tons of extra paper here with this side of the page. So hopefully you can spread it out and maybe make an additional coordinating page as well. So again, you're welcome to use this side. It's a beautiful, the stark difference between the blue and the yellow here. Or again, we're going to use it just as the sample. But this piece here, we need cut down. First, our measurement is, it kind of looks like it has a pattern here, more of a distinctive. So I'm going to cut off the barcode strip so that I can flip my paper around. And then that first cut is going to be our 4 inches. 4 inches. And then we need it to be 8.5. 8 1/4, sorry, 8 1/4. So it's 4 by 8 1/4. And then we're going to adhere it on the left side of our navy. If you notice, we have just a little bit of that pattern of our navy showing there on the left side. We're going to use that kind of as a guide just to make sure we got everything lined up straight. Okay. And then in your baggie here, we have that scallop border that's going to go across the top of the blue. So we'll pull out that little piece there from our bag. And we're just going to run it just slightly above the top edge. So we want to just barely see that little bit of blue showing along the top. I love that this is not necessarily a symmetrical border. To me, it just adds a little bit more of a whimsical aspect to this die cut rather than the traditional scallop border that I love to use. And I'm going to run my adhesive just along the top edge, not necessarily go into every single scallop. And run it across just like that. All right, now that we have all of our pieces in the place for our background sheet, typically this is where we would cut our photo mats. But since we don't have our photos laid out quite yet, I'm going to go ahead and skip that step, and then we'll do it way at the end. So I'm going to go ahead and we're going to get all of our die cuts together. So first we're going to start with our title. We have that Soak Up the Sun. And we're going to go ahead and put those pieces together first. You know, I am a sun lover. I love warm weather. I love to be by water, whether it be a lake or an ocean. And my oldest child is very, very, very fair-skinned and is the one that gets sunburnt with a hat on and 50 sunblock sitting in the shade.
I think it's so funny how genetics works. Because if there was a way I could pack up my office and only work outside, I would do it. All right. So I haven't done any inking or anything to this title other than just adhere it to our background shadow. And I'm going to put all of these pieces together, and then in the end we'll put them all together on the page there. So we have some flowers. I'm going to move this aside. That way you might be able to see that a little better. So we have that little blue flower, and then we have that yellow and orange flower. And again, I'm just going to adhere those layers together. And then I did embellish the center of each of these with an enamel dot. But we'll wait until all of these pieces are on the page. And then we will embellish with my ever-loving enamel dots. All right. I love using glimmer and canvas together on a page. Look how that adds just so much shimmer by cutting that top layer there with the My Colors glimmer paper. So it looks like we have taken that shimmer marker and kind of colored on top of that top layer, but just cut it out of the shimmer paper. All right, so it looks like next we have our little ice cream cone. It does have more layers than you think it might here. I'm going to get all of these layers. All right, for our base layer, which is this brown layer, really in the end, all you're going to see is that stem. But we wanted that stem for our cherry to be in the brown, and that's kind of going to serve as our base layer, and we're going to layer everything on top of it. So next layer would be our light tan. I'm going to open this up just a little bit more. And these should align just perfectly. And then for our upper layer here, we have this lighter cream layer. That way we can give what appears to be the texture of the ice cream cone there at the bottom with those two layers showing. All right, I did accent some of these other pieces with our Nuvo markers. I'm going to go ahead and do that first, and then we will get them all glued down. So for our white layer of our ice cream, I just outlined the bottom. So kind of in the place of where you would use a powder puff ink. Instead, I'm just coming through right at the bottom of that layer with my Nuvo glitter marker. And I am using the gold ochre for that. Great news, we do have a little bit of a shipment anyway of the Nuvo glitter markers coming back in. So watch for those being restocked. We hope to have those restocked in time for our Sparkle and Shine class. Oh, let's see, I'm just gonna add just a little bit of an accent here on our cherry with our strawberry bonbon, and again with our little leaf. Make sure I have that in the right direction. I'm gonna accent there with the morning moss. And again, nothing fancy here, just kind of going along the edges, giving just a little bit of a shimmer accent on those die cuts.
And that dries instantaneous, so we are good to go. We're going to go ahead and finish adhering all of these layers. And then we have our little leaf. You could use 3D foam on the leaf and on the cherry if you would like to, just to give it a little bit more dimension. I think I might add just a little foam square here to my cherry. We're just going to give that just a little pop there. We'll set those aside. All right, so there is our ice cream cone. I just love when you have so many layers, and again, just adding the color shimmer on there where it looks like a purchased die cut, and all we've done is a marker and layers of paper there. All right, so we have our sun and our clouds as our final die cut of this spread. So for our clouds, I didn't do any inking or anything with markers, but you are welcome to do that. If you wanted to give the white portion of these clouds a little softness there, I would suggest maybe a babbling brook. That's a really, really soft blue. That would be a great accent if you wanted to ink your clouds. Of course, you could use a blue marker or your silver marker if you wanted to do the accents with the marker as well. There is a watercolor technique with the markers that works so well for clouds and backgrounds that we'll talk about in Sparkle and Shine Design 102. All right, so now we have all of the layers of our sunshine here. So we're basically just going to offset them. So we just want to make sure that you can see the various layers of each ray as we go along here. So maybe if we put that like that. I always like to lay it out first just so I can kind of get an idea. All right, so we're going to about do it like that. All right, I think I'm going to go ahead and accent my sun as well. So I'm just going to give just that little shimmer highlight on that top layer. This would be good too if you wanted to ink just this here. And typically when I would ink a gold, I would go like a light brown or something really, really deep in your yellows. But for the sunshine, the sunset would be a great ink to use if you wanted to go around just that orange portion there of our sunshine. But that's all I'm going to do with that, and then I'm just going to keep adhering my layers again, making sure that none of the rays overlap and that we can see, we want to be able to see every ray as we go around. And notice I didn't necessarily stick with just the traditional yellows and oranges for our sun. We're artists. We're going to take artistic liberties here. And I really wanted to bring a rainbow of colors with my sunshine. All right, so now we have all of our die cuts done. So now we are ready to put them on the page. So I'm going to set those die cuts aside and we're going to work here directly onto our page. So we're going to start kind of with this upper portion here. If you do the upper portion, and then once you get your photos, then you can kind of figure out where this little cluster here would go, just kind of depending on where your photos would align the best. So just add a little bit of adhesive here, and away we go. Now, when I work in layers, I do typically kind of lay everything out and then start adhering to make sure it all fits. But I have the sample here, so I kind of know exactly where all of these pieces are going to go at the top. But notice I didn't press down really hard, knowing that I was going to be slipping some layers underneath. And it never has to look just like the sample. But this top portion here works really well since we've left that opening for our title. For our little clouds, I'm going to use the 3D foam. I've lost one of my little clouds. All right, we're gonna roll with it here. It's probably one of those where, you know, it's stuck to an arm or onto the floor. I think I'm gonna go ahead and pop our little clouds. I always go heavy on the pop dots. I like that even surface so that no portion of it is flat. All right, and I'm just going to lay these in place for now because we are going to add some stickers. So I'll just lay this in place until I make sure all of my stickers are going to fit. So back to our sticker sheet here, I used the word sunshine. And again, I'm just going to give it just a little bit of a reinforcement. I realize it is a sticker, just to make sure that we're really sticking here. And I'm going to go just along the bottom of our title. And then on your sticker sheet, we have the little flower. I'm going to add that at the top, giving just a little bit of reinforcement. We're going to tie that into our title. Notice how I've overlapped my sticker and my title. When your embellishments touch your page, when it's grounded by something like this and not just kind of free floating out at the air, it really looks more purposeful. It looks like this is all made to go together, where it wouldn't as much if we just put it way out here where it was kind of out all alone. So it's, you know, think of it as a family. They like to all be touching all together so that it all looks really purposeful in its locations there. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and add my clouds, and then we can embellish, of course, with some enamel dots. Oops. I'm just going to remove my big ones there, not the little one. Okay, and one more here. All right, then let's get our enamel dots, and we're just going to do just a little bit of highlighting here. I wanted to kind of accent the word sunshine here, so I've taken the larger of the gray enamel dots and just added one on each side. And then embellished here, and then I did dot the center of that flower there. Yes, I love to embellish embellishments. All right, we are almost done. So now I'm just going to add this little cluster here. See, there's our little cloud. All right, since we found him, I'm going to go ahead and stick him up there. I'm going to stick one more tiny one in there. And let's put it right there. All right, so with this, we also have this final little banner sticker here. You could definitely use the good stuff or the smile. It's just going to depend on where your photo placement is going to be. But I'm just going to kind of lay all of this out here to make sure it all fits. And then our final is going to be to put this all together. See how easy this page comes together. We had a lot of techniques on that first page. But even though this is super simplistic, it looks, you know, from just looking at it, it looks like we've really spent just hours making it look beautiful with just these small little details of the enamel dots intermingled in our die cuts and the hint of the markers. All right, I'm going to put my dry adhesive onto our ice cream cone, and then I am going to embellish around this little section with these darker ones. So in the center of each flower, I did put the largest of the black enamel dots. And then we should have 3 more of those dark ones. And I am just going to add that little highlight. If you notice, I'm actually finding the flowers of the pattern paper and adding them kind of in the center of those flowers there. So you are welcome to do that. You could take your light ones and add a few more, however you want to finish that up. All right, so there is our second page. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to cut all of my photo mats, and I'm going to meet you back here just in a second to show you the finished spread. All right, so I've added all my photo mats. I've totally completed my page, and here we go. Here is our finished spread. Hopefully you've had fun learning all about overlays and have enjoyed especially putting together this spread. I have been asked when I go to add my photo mats how I tend to do awkward sizes. And I know a lot of you work in 4x6 photos. And again, what I give you is just a guide. Obviously, you're going to make it and rearrange it to however best fits your particular photos. But when I scrapbook for myself, which is pretty rare, the only time I do is I have 2 grandchildren that live in Japan. So I scrapbook them and their photos that their parents send. But when I go to print them out, I always print kind of all sorts of sizes. So I print the 4x6s, I print wallet sizes, so that I have kind of options when I go to scrapbook. I know it does cost a little more, and you're kind of not using all of the photos you're going to print. But I just love having all of those options so that when I'm going to put the page together, I can decide which size of that photo would work best for what I'm doing. So that's why even in my personal scrapbooking, I do work with all these various sizes. But again, it's totally up to you what your preference is and how you want to use your photos and how many you want to use. So here we go. Here is our completed
Let the sun shine in. Let's soak up the sun. Completed spread. We hope you've enjoyed tonight's class, and we really hope that you feel like you've gained a wealth of knowledge about using overlays in our Creating with Cut Files series. We are actually going to introduce 10 brand new overlays during this month's virtual Croptacular event. So be sure to join us on Saturday, August the 28th for our Candyland virtual event. We will also introduce the Pink Fresh sequins for you to create your own shaker boxes with our overlays. You are just going to die for all of these colors. They are scrumptious. Thanks again for joining us. Next class is Sparkle and Shine Design, where we will dive deep into Nouveau glitter markers. Thank you for joining us, and happy scrapping.